Hello and welcome back to my channel, Skepticus. This is your boy, Adam of Nola. And this is another episode in my flagship series, God-Free Bible Study. Today we are starting with Numbers 18. I don't really have a preamble for you today, so we're just going to dive right into it. These first, couple chapters or couple long verses are a little dry, so we're going to kind of plow through this as fast as we can. This is starting off with responsibility of priests and Levites. The Lord said to Aaron, "You and your sons and your ancestral house with you shall bear responsibility for offenses connected with the sanctuary, while you and your sons alone shall bear responsibility for offenses connected with the priesthood. So bring with you also your brothers of the tribe of Levi, your ancestral tribe, in order that they may be joined to you and serve you while you and your sons with you are in front of the tent of the covenant. They shall perform duties for you and for the whole tent, but they must not approach either the utensils of the sanctuary or the altar, or else both they and you will die, because that's the penalty for doing anything wrong in the sanctuary, is killing people. They are attached to you in order to perform the duties of the tent of meeting for all the service of the tent. No outsider shall approach you. You yourselves shall perform the duties," it keeps saying duties, "of the sanctuary and the duties of the altar, so that wrath may never again come upon the Israelites." Oh, trust me, wrath is absolutely going to come upon the Israelites. "It is I who now take your brother Levites from among the Israelites. They are now yours as a gift." These are the people as a gift, dedicated to the Lord to perform the service of the tent of meeting. "But you and your sons with you shall diligently perform your priestly duties in all that concerns the altar in the area behind the curtain. I give your priesthood as a gift. Any outsider who approaches shall be put to death." So there's a little terms and conditions about this video that I probably should have shared with you before we started, but hey, what does it matter? God doesn't need terms and conditions, so I guess I can spring this on you now. The first 100 people who have left a comment on this video, you are now given to me as a gift, dedicated to Adam of Nola to perform the service of the channel. So I know you didn't sign up for it, but hey, neither did the Levites. So I guess you are now here conscripted to perform the services of the channel. I hope that you're happy with that. And once again, we start this chapter with this basically imprecation that says, "You and your sons and your ancestral house with you shall bear responsibility for offenses connected with the sanctuary." So if there's anything shitty that's happening in your life today, it's probably because you are descended from someone in antiquity who was supposed to be taking care of the sanctuary when something bad happened there. So the next time you go to therapy and you're on the couch and the therapist is saying, what's going on? What's wrong with your life? You can say, "Well, my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was working in a sanctuary when someone did a bad thing, and now my life sucks." This is the Lord's justice. Okay. The Lord spoke to Aaron, "I have given you charge of the offerings made to me, all the holy gifts of the Israelites. I have given them to you and your sons as a priestly portion due you in perpetuity. This shall be yours from the most holy things, reserved from the fire. Every offering of theirs that they render to me as a most holy thing, whether grain offering, purification offering, or guilt offering, shall belong to you and your sons. As a most holy thing you shall eat it. Every male may eat it. It shall be holy to you. This also is yours. I have given to you, together with your sons and daughters, as a perpetual due, whatever is set aside from the gifts of all the elevation offerings of the Israelites. Everyone who is clean in your house may eat them. All the best of the oil and all the best of the wine and of the grain, the choice produce that they give to the Lord, I have given to you. The first fruits of all that is in their land that they bring to the Lord shall be yours. Everyone who is clean in your house may eat of it. Every devoted thing in Israel shall be yours. The first issue of the womb of all creatures, human and animal, that is offered to the Lord shall be yours. Let me read that again. The first issue of the womb of all creatures, human and animal, that is offered to the Lord shall be yours. But the firstborn of human beings you shall redeem, and the firstborn of unclean animals you shall redeem. In other words, everything, all the firstborn from human and animals have to be offered up at the temple. But the humans and the firstborn of the unclean animals, they'll be redeemed. In other words, bought back. Their redemption price, reckoned from 1 month of age, you shall fix at 5 shekels of silver, according to the shekel of the sanctuary, that is 20 gerahs. But the firstborn of a cow, or the firstborn of a sheep, or the firstborn of a goat, you shall not redeem. They are holy. You shall dash their blood on the altar and turn their fat into smoke as an offering by fire for a pleasing odor to the Lord. If I am an animal, I would prefer to not be holy, but okay. But their flesh shall be yours, just as the breast that is elevated and as the right thigh are yours. All the holy offerings that the Israelites present to the Lord, I have given to you, together with your sons and daughters as a perpetual due. It is a covenant of salt forever before the Lord for you and your descendants as well. Then the Lord said to Aaron, you shall have no allotment in their land, nor shall you have any share among them. I am your share and your possession among the Israelites. So before we move on, I just want to mention really quickly, it lays out all these rules about how the offerings are to be used and kept, essentially by the priests, by those who are in the temple, in the sanctuary. And this, they've already hit on this in previous books, but this really just starts a whole process whereby the priesthood, on one level, know they're not rich because these things aren't theirs. They're not given to them to like take home. They don't keep gold and silver. But on the other hand, they are kind of rich, or at least they're well kept, because all these offerings come in from the congregation, from the tribes. And these offerings, we're getting all these instructions on what parts of the offerings can be kept or used or eaten by the priest. Now, to be fair, if you have a religious tradition of any kind, any religion, the priests have to make a living somehow. I mean, someone has to give them some money to live by and some food to eat, etc., or else they have to go get jobs, or else they'll be poor and they'll die of starvation. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't get anything, but this really does codify a practice whereby priests of many different faiths essentially put themselves in a position, and I'm not saying this as a damnation upon priests, okay? I'm saying this is the system that was set up. But they are put into the system where basically they can sort of kind of enrich themselves according to the offerings that are made by the people. Again, there's a whole lot of nuance to this, and I'm not trying to damn all of the priests of every religion to hell, okay? I'm not saying that they're horrible, evil people, but I am saying that there is a very, very gossamer thin line between just taking what you need from the offerings to maintain yourself and using those offerings to kind of sort of enrich yourself and make yourself better than the people who are providing the offerings. Just put that in your pipe and smoke it. Now, to hammer that home, let's go to the next paragraph. To the Levites, I have given every tithe in Israel for a possession in return for the service that they perform, the service in the tent of meeting. From now on, the Israelites shall no longer approach the tent of meeting, or else they will incur guilt and die. Of course, there always has to be the die. It can't just be you're guilty and we're going to punish you. No, it's you're going to incur guilt and die. What a bloodthirsty asshole. But the Levites shall perform the service of the tent of meeting, and they shall bear responsibility for their own offenses. It shall be a perpetual statute throughout your generations. But among the Israelites, they shall have no allotment, because I have given to the Levites as their portion the tithe of the Israelites, which they set apart as an offering to the Lord. Therefore, I have said of them that they shall have no allotment among the Israelites. So they have no allotment among the Israelites. But imagine if you are from a large and prosperous region, that these Levites could really do pretty well for themselves if all of the tithes are going directly to support the Levites. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, you shall say to the Levites, obey or else. No, you shall say to the Levites, when you receive from the Israelites the tithe that I have given you from them for your portion, you shall set apart an offering from it to the Lord, a tithe of the tithe. It shall be reckoned to you as your gift, the same as the grain of the threshing floor and the fullness of the winepress. Thus you also shall set apart an offering to the Lord from all the tithes that you receive from the Israelites, and from them you shall give the Lord's offering to the priest Aaron. Out of all the gifts to you, you shall set apart every offering due to the Lord. The best of all of them is the part to be consecrated. Say also to them, when you have set apart the best of it, then the rest shall be reckoned to the Levites as produce of the threshing floor and as produce of the winepress. You may eat it in any place, you and your households, for it is your payment for your service in the tent of meeting. You shall incur no guilt by reason of it when you have offered the best of it, but you shall not profane the holy gifts of the Israelites on pain of death. Oh, good. More death again. So you have to be so naive to not read these passages as the formalization of graft amongst the priestly class. Now, again, I don't want to overstate this or overplay it, because if you look at like the temple periods of Israel, you could say, okay, these people could get really, really rich. Now, if you look at it in a modern context, one temple might be in a very small community, and these tithes, I know they don't have Levites taking care of the temples anymore. But my point is, if we were to project this forward, then the tithes may not be that audacious. But it is not hard to see a scenario where these tithes could become quite bountiful. And all the Levites have to do is tithe from the tithes. In other words, let's say we're doing 10%, right? So everyone gives 10% to the Levites. Well, then once the Levites bring it all in, they give 10% of that to the Lord, but the other 90% is theirs. And that could be quite wealthy. And we do see that, this is essentially where the Pharisees and the Sadducees are coming from, that this is a position of stature and of wealth. Okay, Numbers 19 is also a little wordy. We're going to kind of burn through this as fast as possible. This is the ceremony of the red heifer. Because you know what we need? We need some more instructions on how to sacrifice. That's what we really need. When you read through the Bible, especially the Pentateuch, the one thing that keeps coming into your brain over and over again is, but how do I sacrifice? I don't know if I've been given enough instructions on how to sacrifice. I need more detail, Lord. Thankfully, they're finally providing it. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, this is a statute of the law that the Lord has commanded. Tell the Israelites to bring you a red heifer without defect, in which there is no blemish and on which no yoke has been laid. You shall give it to the priest Eleazar. and it shall be taken outside the camp and slaughtered in his presence. The priest, Eleazar, shall take some of its blood with his finger and sprinkle it 7 times toward the front of the tent of meeting. Then the heifer shall be burned in his sight. Its skin, its flesh, and its blood with its entrails shall be burned. The priest shall take cedar wood, hyssop, and crimson material and throw them into the fire in which the heifer is burning. Then the priest shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterward he may come into the camp. But the priest shall remain unclean until evening, because evening magically makes you clean again. The one who burns the heifer shall wash his clothes in water and bathe his body in water. He shall remain unclean until evening. The magic cleaning of evening. And someone who is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer and deposit them outside the camp in a clean place, and they shall be kept for the congregation of the Israelites for the water for cleansing. It is a purification offering. The one who gathers the ashes of the heifer shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. A quick note here. I'm assuming it's tied to this. I don't know, and I've not researched this. I'm talking off the cuff here. But there's this whole red heifer thing in Israel, and there is apparently a place where they're preparing to sacrifice a red heifer when they think that the end times are near. I don't know. It's a whole bunch of witchy, magic-y kind of shit. I assume it's tied to this, but I don't know. You guys can put the comments below. I'm sure someone knows about this. And I did not read up on this before I did this today, because that's a whole rabbit hole that's not for God-free Bible study. This shall be a perpetual state for the Israelites and for the alien residing among them. Oh, look, more alien talk. Yeah, let's get them all out of the country. Those who touch the dead body of any human being shall be unclean 7 days. They shall purify them, because magically after 7 days, poof, you're clean. You could wallow around in mud and filth. You could be wiping dung on you the whole time, but after 7 days, you're clean. They shall purify themselves with the water on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, and so be clean. Keep in mind, it says purify themselves with the water, and I get it, because what else were they going to do? But they had no soap. God could never be bothered to say, hey guys, let me show you how to make soap. That would have been kind of helpful. Instead of this whole wait till evening or wait 7 days, he could have said, guys, here's how you make a bar of soap. And anytime you do these unclean things, just wash your ass. He could have done that. But no, he couldn't have, because the ancient Bronze Age Hebrews who wrote this had no idea what soap was. So, of course, neither did Yahweh. But if they do not purify themselves on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, they will not become clean. All who touch a corpse, the body of a human being who has died, and do not purify themselves, defile the tabernacle of the Lord. Such persons shall be cut off from Israel. Since water for cleansing was not dashed on them, they remain unclean. Their uncleanness is still on them. Yes, let's cut them off from it. I have this picture of course, at this point they're in the wilderness, but I have this picture of the border of Israel, all around the country. And every day there's people being dropped off a foot over the border because they did something, they violated a rule of Passover, or they violated a rule of the tabernacle. They ate yeast or something like that. And they're like, okay, you've been cut off from Israel. And they just deposit them right over the border, a foot over the border. This is the law when someone dies in a tent. How many laws for death do we have to have? I don't know. Everyone who comes into the tent and everyone who is in the tent shall be unclean 7 days. And every open vessel with no cover fastened on it is unclean. Whoever in the open field touches one who has been killed by a sword, or who has died naturally, or a human bone, or a grave, shall be unclean 7 days. There is so much Bronze Age ignorance in this. So if you touch a human bone, now I understand if there's a rotting corpse, okay, something in my eye, I don't get it. If there's a rotting corpse, there's a good amount of time that, unless it's sitting in the public square or something, you'd like to not touch that corpse, including the bones, because there's rotting and decay going on in it. But the decay process is pretty fast. Before a body starts decaying, and bodies do not just immediately become rancid. It takes a matter of hours or even days before they start getting gross. Before that time, you can move them around and it's fine. You're not going to die of some horrific disease. I mean, there are a few diseases you can die of that are communicable after death, but they're very few. So the only real fear in terms of scientific fear is when decay sets in and, all sorts of other organisms get into the body and such. And after that, it takes a matter of weeks. But, after several months, I'm not saying you want to go play around with corpses that are 3 or 4 months old, but after several months, I mean, touching a human bone is not a big deal. Or if you're for some reason in a grave and you're moving the bones, I mean, that bone is as sterile, assuming that the body has been in that grave for years. That bone is as sterile as all of the rocks and surroundings around it. But of course, they don't know this, which means Yahweh doesn't know it. For the unclean, they shall take some ashes of the burnt purification offering, and running water shall be added in a vessel. Then a clean person shall take hyssop, dip it in the water, and sprinkle it on the tent, on all the furnishings, on the persons who were there, and on whoever touched the bone, the slain, the corpse, or the grave. The clean person shall sprinkle the unclean ones on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, thus purifying them on the 7th day. Then they shall wash their clothes and bathe themselves in water, and at evening they shall be clean. Any who are unclean, but do not purify themselves, those persons shall be cut off from the assembly, for they have defiled the sanctuary of the Lord. Since the water for cleansing has not been dashed on them, they are unclean. I find it a little funny how this is so scientifically ignorant and backward, and yet you almost feel like there's this slight hint of knowledge that they can never break through, because this isn't God speaking. This is ancient Hebrew men. Like the sprinkling of the water. And water alone is good for cleaning, even if you have no soap. Now, I understand that without soap, the streams or standing water or whatever, it could have a lot of problems in it too, okay? But it's still probably better to rinse off with water than not. So if you can't be bothered to teach them how to make soap, which apparently they can't, then yeah, tell them to wash. But this sprinkling of water, like, oh, look, I just threw a few droplets on you and now you are ritually clean. Like, that's so stupid. It makes no sense. But this is supposedly coming from God. The omniscient God who doesn't know step 1 about personal hygiene or disease or anything else. It's so stupid. It shall be a perpetual state for them. The one who sprinkles the water for cleansing shall wash his clothes, and whoever touches the water for cleansing shall be unclean until evening. Whatever the unclean person touches shall be unclean, and anyone who touches it shall be unclean until evening. Yes, I feel like I've now learned all of the science of disease and keeping myself clean. I don't need a medical degree anymore. I'm just going to say, dude, I read numbers. Like, I know how to keep myself clean. I know how to cure disease. Like, I read numbers. I read Leviticus. I'm good to go, man. Could you imagine doing this shit like in a hospital? Did you prep for surgery? Yeah, I sprinkled droplets of water on people. We're ready to go. That would be so perfect. All right, we are at Numbers 20. I still say I need a ring girl, I need someone, and I'm sorry to sound uncouth, but I just need someone with quite the busty figure, just, and she can like run around with 20. Like, that would be so great. The waters of Meribah. The Israelites, the whole congregation, came into the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed in Kadesh. Miriam died there and was buried there. One note about this, which is really weird, is that I'm almost certain we've jumped back in time again, which is so confusing. I mean, did the authors want it to be this way? I'm not sure. And by back in time, what I mean is when you compare this narrative to Exodus and Leviticus, it's like we're all doing the time dance again. I don't know. And I wonder if Miriam died because God kept afflicting her with plagues and exiling her from the camp anytime she had the audacity to question Moses, because we saw where that happened before. She questioned Moses. So how was she treated? She was given the plague and exiled from camp. Aaron wasn't, but Miriam was. So eventually, I think that took its toll on her. Now, there was no water for the congregation, so they gathered together against Moses and against Aaron. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "Would that we had died when our kindred died before the Lord. Why have you brought the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness for us and our livestock to die here? Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to bring us to this wretched place? It is no place for grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." Then Moses and Aaron went away from the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting. They fell on their faces, again with the falling on their faces. It's so much drama. And the glory of the Lord appeared to them. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take the staff and assemble the congregation, you and your brother Aaron, and command the rock before their eyes to yield its water. Thus you shall bring water out of the rock for them. Thus you shall provide drink for the congregation and their livestock." So I want everyone to think about the logistics of this. You get water when you complain about it. In other words, they were already thirsty. They're wandering, they're running out of water, or they've already run out of water. And now finally they're complaining about it. So you get water when you complain about it. But complaining is deemed as a sin, one that could be and absolutely has been recently in the narrative deadly. And it was all God's plan in the first place to just march them into the desert. I know that this is painted so many times as the people not having faith in the Lord, which is so ridiculous. I want you to think about this practically speaking. Imagine that I came to your city and I said, "I'm going to lead you out of whatever horrible situation is going on in your city." You're probably pretty happy in your city, but let's just imagine that you're miserable. And I come and I say, "I'm going to lead you out, all right? I'm a general, and I'm going to lead you out of the city." And then we get you out of the city, all like million of you, and we get out into this wilderness. And then only then, when we get to the wilderness, does it become apparent that I have no plan to get you food or water, that you will get no food or water until you gripe about it. And that as soon as you gripe about it, then I'm going to be pissed off at you for having the audacity to gripe about wanting food and water. How much sense does that make? Do you think a general ever takes his army out into maneuvers, and once he's out there, then he says, "Oh, I guess we're going to have to figure out what to do about water because the troops are complaining"? Like, this is the Almighty God, and his whole idea for water is that when they start complaining that we are dying of thirst, then maybe I'll come up with a solution. So Moses took the staff from before the Lord as he had commanded him. Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock, and he said to them, "Listen, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock?" Listen to that language. Listen, you rebels, you horrible rebels that had the audacity to tell me that you're thirsty. You had the audacity to actually communicate that you're running out of water, which, aside from air, is the second most important element of life. You can live for weeks without food. You may not be happy. It may be miserable as you wither away, but you can live a long time without food. But of course, you can only live minutes without air, and you can only live a matter of days without water. And yet, when they said, hey, we have nothing to drink, Moses doesn't just get the instructions on how to get the water. He has to chastise them before he gives them the water and says, listen, you rebels, how dare you ask for water? How would you like to be one of my advisors? I'm using Skepticus's memberships as a way to allow you to have a voice in the content and the direction of this channel. I hope to see you in the membership pool, and I want to hear your voice in what Skepticus is doing going forward. Then Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water came out abundantly, and the congregation and their livestock drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me to show my holiness before the eyes of the Israelites, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. These are the waters of Meribah, where the Israelites quarreled with the Lord, and through which he showed himself to be holy. Yeah, holy shit. This is disgusting because they got thirsty. Now you're going to leave them to die and totally go back on your own promise. You brought more than 1 million people, according to the narrative. You brought more than 1 million people out of bondage in Egypt, out into the wilderness where there was no source of food or water. And when they finally said, dude, we're getting thirsty. This is a desert. Well, the Lord provided. That's nice of him. But then Moses chastises them for actually having the audacity to ask for water. And then God says to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me to show my holiness before the eyes of the Israelites, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. This is disgusting. Now, I talked about this in a previous chapter and verse, but I'm going to mention this again. This is God lying. God said that he was going to bring these people out of bondage, and he said he was going to bring them to the Holy Land, to the land of milk and honey, to the land of the Canaanites, essentially, that are going to take from them. That's another story. But he didn't say, I will take you there as long as you promise to never tell me that you're thirsty. As long as you never promise to complain about a single thing, as long as you keep your stupid mouth shut. He never said that. He just said, we're leading you out of here to the land of milk and honey, period, full stop. The fact that he is going back on it now proves that he is the God of lies. And this isn't the first time. This isn't the second time. I mean, this has happened over and over and over again. But the promise was not, I will lead you to the land of milk and honey as long as you shut your mouth and never complain. That never came out of his mouth. That was never part of the deal. Now he's deciding, because he's butthurt, that, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I've given him. This is a blatant lie from God. This is going back on God's word. And then it says, these are the waters of Meribah, where the Israelites quarreled with the Lord, and through which he showed himself to be holy. First of all, saying you're thirsty and you're afraid that you're going to die of thirst in the wilderness is not quarreling with the Lord. Again, using my analogy, if I'm a general and I've taken you and your people out away from your home, and we're in the middle of the wilderness, and you have the audacity to tell me, you know what, we're hungry and we're thirsty, that's not quarreling with me. That's pointing out that this plan sucks. And then it ends by saying, through which he showed himself to be holy. What's holy about this? The fact that you just literally lied to everyone, that you went back on your supposedly unchanging word, that you screwed over a generation of people, is that what's holy? because that is not any kind of holy that I ever want to be associated with. That is evil. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom. Thus says your brother Israel, you know all the adversity that has befallen us, how our ancestors went down to Egypt, and we lived in Egypt a long time, and the Egyptians oppressed us and our ancestors. And when we cried to the Lord, he heard our voice and sent an angel and brought us out of Egypt. And here we are in Kadesh, a town on the edge of your territory. Now let us pass through your land. We will not pass through field or vineyard or drink water from any well. We will go along the king's highway, not turning aside to the right hand or to the left until we have passed through your territory. But Edom said to him, you shall not pass through, or we will come out with the sword against you. The Israelites said to him, we will stay on the highway, and if we drink of your water, we and our livestock, then we will pay for it. It is only a small matter. Just let us pass through on foot. But he said, you shall not pass through. And Edom came out against them with a large force, heavily armed. Thus, Edom refused to give Israel passage through their territory, so Israel turned away from them. Could it possibly be that Edom refused passage because he heard that this group was constantly beset with plagues? Or maybe he refused them passage because he heard that their God was being a petty little bitch. I mean, I don't think I'd want these people in my territory either. I sure as hell wouldn't trust them. Maybe he didn't want these people traveling through his territory because he heard about how they lied as sanctioned by God. They lied to the Pharaoh. He said, we're just going to go to the wilderness for a few days to worship our God, which was a lie. And maybe that got back to Edom. I mean, there are so many reasons why Edom would have said and should have said and did say, yeah, no, you ain't going through my territory. I wouldn't have trusted these people either. They set out from Kadesh, and the Israelites, the whole congregation, came to Mount Hor. That sounds like a great mountain, doesn't it? Let's all go to Mount Hor. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron at Mount Hor on the border of the land of Edom, let Aaron be gathered to his people, for he shall not enter the land that I have given to the Israelites, because you rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah. How did Aaron rebel against them? Even if we accept this ridiculous statement that the people were rebelling because they had the audacity to be thirsty, even if we accept that, it never said that Aaron said anything. Throughout this whole thing, Aaron has been the mouthpiece of Moses, who has been the prophet of God. It never said that Aaron did anything against them. This is so ridiculous. Here's what this honestly sounds like. This is all a lot of sad retconning, because even though I don't actually believe that Moses, at least not in the biblical sense, existed, there's no evidence for it whatsoever. If we assume that there was some progenitor, some original person who was the basis for the Moses story, and indeed there may have been some person who was the basis for the Aaron story, and some of those people never made it to the promised land. So as this story evolved, they had to find ways to actually say why it is that they never made it to the promised land. Because as I've already pointed out, them not making it to the promised land is a violation of God's promise. It is proof that God lied. So instead of admitting that, they have to come up with these retcons where God says, well, because you rebelled, which he didn't rebel at all. But because you rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah, you're going to die here in the wilderness. It's really sad. Take Aaron and his son Eleazar and bring them up Mount Hor. Strip Aaron of his vestments and put them on his son Eleazar. But Aaron shall be gathered to his people and shall die there. Moses did as the Lord had commanded. They went up Mount Hor in the sight of the whole congregation. Moses stripped Aaron of his vestments and put them on his son Eleazar, and Aaron died there on the top of the mountain. Moses and Eleazar came down the mountain. When all the congregation saw that Aaron had died, all the house of Israel mourned for Aaron 30 days. I do kind of wonder, because it says Moses, well, first of all, it's kind of weird, the verbiage. I don't know if this is a translation thing or whatever, but it says Moses stripped Aaron of his vestments. This may just be a quirk of translation, but a lot of times when you say that you stripped someone of something, it's an act of embarrassment. It's an act of force. Like if I say that I've stripped you of your command, or I've stripped you of your military uniform, it doesn't mean that I said, hey, take the uniform off. It means that I forced you to remove the military accoutrement. So they probably don't mean it this way. Again, this is probably a quirk of translation, but it says Moses stripped Aaron of his vestments. It sounds like they're standing on the mountain and Moses is just like, rip, no more vestments for you. And then it says he put him on his son Eleazar, and Aaron died there on the top of the mountain. It makes it sound almost like the vestments were keeping Aaron alive. Like as long as he kept the vestments on, he would have stayed alive, maybe like another 1,000 years. But as soon as they took the vestments off, then Aaron, like you see the sci-fi movies where something's keeping someone alive, or the fantasy movies where something is keeping someone alive unnaturally, like the One Ring. And then they take off the One Ring and suddenly they get a lot older, a lot faster. That's what I feel is kind of happening with the vestments of Aaron. But okay, so Aaron's dead. Dead. All right, so we have time today to get through Numbers 21. So let's dive into this. This is the bronze serpent. When the Canaanite, the king of Arad, who lived in the Negeb, heard that Israel was coming by the way of Atharim, he fought against Israel and took some of them captive. Then Israel made a vow to the Lord and said, if you will indeed give this people into our hands, then we will utterly destroy their towns. The Lord listened to the voice of Israel and handed over the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them and their towns. So the place was called Hormah. So why was there some new bargain needed to make this happen? We've already heard that the Canaanites are bad and he's going to give these lands to these people. So why is it that they had to make this new deal? And it's also funny. It says, if you will indeed give this people into our hands, then we will utterly destroy their towns. Is that a benefit to God? Like, I understand he wants his people, the Israelites, to do well because they're his chosen people. But does it help him to know that they've utterly destroyed the towns? It's like, okay, if you let us defeat these people, we'll promise to fuck everything up. Like, is that somehow helpful? Is God going, oh, I know the answer. God is absolutely like, yes, I like that. From Mount Hor, they set out by way to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom, but the people became discouraged on the way. The people spoke against God and against Moses. Oh no, here we go again. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we detest this miserable food. Then the Lord sent poisonous serpents among the people, and they bit the people so that many Israelites die. Of course he did. The people said there's no food and there's no water because they moved on from where Moses had stricken the rock, right? So there's no more water. So once again, they are suffering hunger and thirst, the thirst being definitely the more pressing of the problems because you can only live a few days without water. And apparently whatever food they had is miserable. So what does the Lord do? The all-loving God, the omnibenevolent, loving Abba Father, what does he do? He sends poisonous serpents among the people, and they bit the people so that many Israelites die. Oh, thank you, Abba Father. You wonderful father, dude. Oh, what a great man. Man, I can relate to this because I remember so many times when I was a kid and I would tell mom or dad, Mom, I'm hungry or I'm thirsty. And they would send poisonous serpents into my bedroom, and the poisonous serpents would bite me. And I almost died many times because that's what good parents do. So it took me a while to learn to never tell them that I was hungry or thirsty, because if I did, mom or dad would send poisonous serpents into my bedroom to bite me and possibly kill me. Thank you, Abba Father. This is the loving God. He sent poisonous serpents to the people and bit the people, and so that many Israelites died because they committed the sin of being hungry and thirsty. You can't make this shit up. You really can't. The people oh God. The people came to Moses and said, please stop biting us. No, that's not what it says. The people came to Moses and said, we have sinned by speaking against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord to take away the serpents from us. So, okay, that statement, pray to the Lord to take away the serpents from us. So this doesn't mean that there were some snake bites that happened. It sounds like the serpents basically took up camp and just kept biting them over and over and over again. And finally they said, okay, we're sorry, we've sinned. Can you take the serpents away? It's so ridiculous. And the Lord said to Moses, make a poisonous serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten shall look at it and live. Or, God could just tell the people you're cured. But no, apparently he can't do that. So Moses made a serpent of bronze and put it upon a pole. And whenever a serpent bit someone, that person would look at the serpent of bronze and live. So I guess God he is so limited, so incredibly limited. All of you Christians, or Jews for that matter, who want to tell me this BS about your supposedly omnipotent God, give me a break. An omnipotent God could first of all say, serpents be gone. Forget the omnibenevolent part, okay? Forget the fact that he beset them with serpents. Let's just accept that for a moment. An omnipotent God could say, serpents be gone. One, that's the first thing. Second, an omnipotent God could say, you are cured. That's it. You're cured. There's no need to make a bronze serpent and have the people look at it and be cured or healed. That's stupid. That is the sympathetic magic version of a supposed deity who doesn't exist, who's being called on by Bronze Age ancient Hebrew men. That is so weak and stupid. The Israelites set out and camped in Oboth. They set out from Oboth and camped at Abarim in the wilderness bordering Moab toward the sunrise. From there, they set out and camped in the Wadi Zered. From there, they set out and camped on the other side of the Arnon in the wilderness that extends from the boundary of the Amorites, for the Arnon is the boundary of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Wherefore it is said in the book of the wars of the Lord. What does that mean? Wherefore it is said in the book of the wars of the Lord. And this is, if you're not looking at the screen, book and wars are capitalized. In other words, it's a formal noun. Book of the wars of the Lord. Is that like in Judaic tradition? Is that a formal religious text? Or is it some formal history text? Like, do we have, I should Google that, but I've gotten to this point in the reading and I don't want to cut this up. So I'll look it up later, but I've never heard of the book of the wars of the Lord. That's interesting. Anyway, wherefore it is said in the book of the wars of the Lord, whatever that is, Wahab and Suphah and the Wadis, the Arnon and the slopes of the Wadis that extend to the seat of Ar and lie along the border of Moab. From there they continued to Beer. All right, let's get to Beer. That is the well of which the Lord said to Moses, gather the people together and I will give them water. And then I will set poisonous snakes on them for asking for it, probably. Then Israel sang this song, spring up, O well, sing to it, the well that the leaders sank, that the nobles of the people dug, with the scepter, with the staff. Yeah, you better sing and be happy and be thankful for every little drop of water you get. Otherwise, God will murder you. From the wilderness to Mattanah, from Mattanah to Nahaliel, from Nahaliel to Bamoth, and from Bamoth to the valley lying in the region of Moab by the top of Pisgah that overlooks the wasteland. Pisgah was mentioned in Genesis 1. That's interesting. Genesis 2. Then Israel sent messengers to King Sihon of the Amorites, saying, let me pass through your lands. We will not turn aside into field or vineyard. We will not drink the water of any well. We will go by the king's highway until we have passed through your territory. But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his territory. Notice, nobody likes you. Nobody is accommodating to you because you've already garnered a really crappy reputation as a people, and probably your so-called God has garnered a really crappy reputation too. But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his territory. Sihon gathered all his people together and went out against Israel to the wilderness. He came to Jahaz and fought against Israel. Israel put him to the sword and took possession of his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, as far as to the Ammonites, for the boundary of the Ammonites was strong. Israel took all these towns, and Israel settled in all the towns of the Amorites, in Heshbon and in all its villages. For Heshbon was the city of King Sihon of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab and captured all his land as far as the Arnon. Therefore the singers say, come to Heshbon, let it be built, let the city of Sihon be established. For fire came out from Heshbon, flame from the city of Sihon. It devoured Ar of Moab and swallowed up the heights of the Arnon. This is such lovely song and poetry. Woe to you, O Moab. We are going to put the smack down. We are a warlike, horrible people. Woe to you, O Moab. You are undone, O people of Chemosh. Interesting. I don't think that's a reference to a city. Chemosh is a god, a Canaanite god. So I believe that means, O people of Chemosh, meaning I think the followers of Chemosh. He has made his sons fugitives and his daughters captives to an Amorite king, Sihon. So their posterity perished from Heshbon to Dibon, and we laid waste until fire spread to Meribah. Thus Israel settled in the land of the Amorites. Moses sent to spy out Jazer, and they captured its villages and dispossessed the Amorites who were there. Okay, so first of all, I love the idea, like, are these little, small little Israelites, when they're children and toddlers around the campfire, and they're singing this song about how we burned everything down and we killed everyone and we're taking everything over. Like, where the little kids like, oh, I love this song. This is the best song ever. And then at the end of this, it says, and they captured its villages and dispossessed the Amorites who were there. That's a lovely, politically correct term. We dispossessed the Amorites. That's like me doing a home invasion at your house, throwing you out, completely killing you, or at least moving you out, and then saying, oh, I dispossessed you of your house. Like, okay. Then they turned and went up the road to Bashan, and King Og of Bashan came out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. But the Lord said to Moses, do not be afraid of him, for I have given him into your hand with all his people and his land. You shall do to him as you did to King Sihon of the Amorites who lived in Heshbon. So they killed him. his sons and all his people until there was no survivor left, and they took possession of his land. So it says, do not be afraid of him, for I have given him into your hand with all his people and his land. In other words, let's go do some genocide. Yeah, all his people. You're going to kill all of them. And sure enough, it says, so they killed him, his sons, and all his people until there was no survivor left, and they took possession of his land. Now, I want to really harp on this. This is the end of Numbers 21, and this will be the end of our reading, but there are so many discussions amongst apologists who want to make every stupid and sad excuse for genocide that is commanded and happens all over the Old Testament. As bad as so much of the reading has been up to this point, I think this is really the first time we've gotten a really good sense of the Israelite people under the command of God committing holy genocide, because that's what this is. Let's not brush over this. So they killed him. That's the king. I get it. When you conquer a king, you kill the king. Fine. His sons, yeah, I get it. You're not going to leave alive people with claims to the throne. And all his people, whoa, wait. Does that mean soldiers? But then, no, they make it clear, until there was no survivor left. That means they killed every fighting age man. They killed all the women. And back in these times, there were virtually no female warriors anywhere. So they killed all the women. They killed all of the elderly, because there were men who weren't fighting men, but they would have killed all of them too, who wouldn't have been any threat to anyone, but they would have put all of them to the sword. And of course, any children, including infants. They all were, according to this passage, slaughtered. Now, you're going to get all kinds of apologetic crap around this. People will tell you, oh, it was a different time. No, this wasn't a different time. This was the morality of your God on display. Yes, it was a different time, but to try to claim that they couldn't have done it any other way is just purely willfully ignorant. When you tell me that there was no survivor left, that is genocide. It's one thing to say there was no survivor left on the battlefield. That's a different discussion. Or when you say there was no survivor left in the castle or in the palace or in the keep, that's a different discussion. But when you say that in this country, this land of Heshbon, there was no survivor left, that is genocide. You'll also get apologetic crap for this, where they'll say, well, but we know from the historical record this is bragging because they didn't actually kill all of them. We see records of them in the future. I don't care. Your holy text says that there was no survivor left. And God's word to Moses is, do not be afraid of him, for I have given him into your hand with all his people and his land. This is God sanctioning massive slaughter, complete genocide. And this is, I believe, the first instance we've really seen of this, where God is sanctioning and or commanding the Israelites to do this, and they do it. Now, to be clear, there will be other instances in the future where the command is even clearer and the narrative about what they did is even clearer. But this is really one of the first true signs that we get from biblically sanctioned genocide. Yay. All right, that's as far as we're going to get through Numbers today. We got through Numbers 21. Thank you for being here with me on this journey. Thank you to my members. You guys are incredibly appreciated at all times. I hope to see all of you, or at least some of you, on future videos. If you haven't checked out the rest of God-Free Bible Study, please do, even though the early episodes are a little less on audio quality and, I don't know, maybe a little cringy in terms of overall quality. I don't know. But I start from Genesis Genesis 1, and we've worked right up through Numbers at this point, and we're going to keep marching on because this is how we do. So I'm glad that you're here. I hope that you check out the rest of the episodes. If you haven't so far, please stick with me for future episodes. And until I see you again, lo, I say unto you, stay skeptical.